at that time thinking about opening school. I won't say reopening school because we were open all last year, as you know. And our team who's on this call, I think our administrative team who joined tonight has been working hard in their individual schools to prepare for the start of the year. Since that time that I shared that plan with the district by June 26th, some things have changed over the summer. New guidance has come out. Governor's order, executive order 13A, and as well as the orders of the commissioner of Department of Public Health require mask wearing in all schools through September 30th. They're required throughout the summer programming, and all the mitigation strategies remained in place. The executive order carries that through September 30th. It was a bit ambiguous at one point, and it was kind of unclear. And I sent the board correspondence from Shipman and Goodwin from Tom Mooney, who kind of explained what that means to board members, both for personal liability reasons, as members of some boards around the country have, for lack of a better word, taken a stand against masks and refused to go in that direction. So Tom Mooney, who's, the most renowned educational attorney in the state from Shipman, sent kind of explanation about that. And I shared that with all of you. I know it's multiple pages. I won't go into details here, but basically it lays out the fact that an executive order is enforceable as school law. So violation of an executive order is violating a state law. As you know, I continue to get the emails from parents that I've shared. Basically, I won't say blaming me, but holding me responsible for the mask mandate. And I certainly understand the multiple perspectives on issues. And, for the most part, discourse has been civil and appropriate and polite, and I respect different opinions, and I get that. So I guess the reason for tonight's meeting is really as a follow-up to the June 26th plan I shared. Dave and I sat down based on the very latest guidance about 2 weeks ago and created that blue and white table that I sent to all families, staff, and the board, kind of quick reference guide. We also updated the June 26th plan to be more current to the latest guidelines based on some things that changed over the summer. The new requirement for 3 feet in the classrooms, and the removal of plexiglass as a mitigation strategy. Really, they don't believe there's any evidence to show that that's effective. And I'm glad we didn't go all in like some districts spending $30,000-$40,000 on plexiglass shields. We did get quite a bit of it, and we used it in certain locations as an added precaution and psychological as well as, mitigation strategy at the time. But, we didn't go with desk dividers for every desk in the district like some did. So the biggest changes from what we had last year, just as an overview, and there's more, but are the classroom for students only. They only have to be 3 feet apart. All of our schools, and the principals can speak up if there's any exceptions. There may be a rare exception to that, but all of our schools, I know the high school is closer to 4 or 5 feet between students in just about every class, or more in some classes. Middle school, I don't know if Amy's on the call. Excuse me. I don't see Amy here. But Kevin, you sent it to Amy, correct? The link? But
I believe so. I'll double check.
Okay. Anyway, I haven't heard of any major concerns with that. And what that does is, for the close contact of a positive case identification, it reduces the perimeter, if you will, the diameter around, as a student being the epicenter, from 6 feet to 3 feet in the classroom setting. In all other settings, it remains at 6 feet for our contact tracing purposes, lunchroom, close proximity, and other locations for 15 minutes over the course of a 24-hour day, 24-hour period, I should say. So, that's one of the main changes. Also, less emphasis on things like one-way hallways and stairwells, and there hasn't been any emphasis on the importance of that. The transient quickly passing by each other in the hallways. with masks on, because there is universal masking required. There's very little risk there. It's a very quick exchange. So all of our principals have done a good job of taking the guidance I sent out about a week and a half ago, and personalizing that, if you will, or contextualizing that to their schools. That's all been shared with families. I did share some correspondence from reactions from the community, some very positive, some very critical, which is to be expected. I didn't share every correspondence I received. It's kind of hard to search back because some just sent me a quick message outside of that email chain from those school messengers. So I did my best to search for a good number of them, and I can forward those in the future as I receive them in reply, as I've done in the past sometimes. I just didn't know how much email you want to be bombarded with as a board. But I know that the other thing we're going to do is re-implement. I have to talk to Kevin about this, but the use of our homepage web, the email address that goes, to the Board of Education, and it goes to Joan, and she would forward all those to the board. So really emphasize that as the place to go if they want to share a message with the board. People have gotten away from that because I communicate so much. They tend to just email me directly, and then sometimes the board doesn't get the context that I have from dealing with all the emails and addressing all the questions. So I guess with that being said, also earlier today, prior to the vaccination mandate for school and state employees and those contracted to be working in buildings or coming into buildings repeatedly, like volunteers, substitute teachers, the state also sent out, which I shared with the board, the latest. We've been waiting for this for several weeks. They keep saying it's almost ready. It came out today, thankfully, but the latest school opening mitigation requirements and requirements and recommendations. So that spells out, a number of things. I think the most interesting one on there is related to masking of teachers. They do propose that teachers who are at the front of the classroom, separated from students, are able to. It's up to the district's decision to allow it, but they're able to remove their mask while teaching. I see that as a potentially, good thing for teachers who want to do that, but also, for upper level 12 and older students who are vaccinated, not being able to do that. I can see the potential pushback from parents who are seeing what they may perceive as a, dual standard. I understand the reasoning for it. Teachers are up there talking at length and all day, and that's.
Excuse me, Steve.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm hearing some people can't get into the meeting. Are there people that have gotten in through the link on the community schools website?
I see 3 that are attendees that aren't panelists. I see 22 panelists. Kevin?
Correct. The link on the website, they have to register.
Yep.
And they'll put their name and they'll get a link directly, and then they click that link to join.
Okay.
Thank you. So here we are after, I wanted to get the board, up to date. I know I've sent you lots of correspondence, weekly updates and emails and outlines and plans. I sent you all the school plans today. I know the middle school, Amy's still working on hers. There were just some overview, bullet points there, but, you received all the others with, Carla's pictures and, things that they're changing, adding an additional lunch wave, lots of different strategies to, I'm sorry, 2 lunch waves. That's right. There were only 2 for the past several years. There used to be 3, Carl, before your time. But 4 lunch waves to really reduce the high school, the size of the cafeterias as far as kids in there at one time. All the principals have done a great job of really planning based on the latest guidelines so that we're following the guidelines for those strategies in their schools. I don't know, I guess I can open it up to questions because I think I shared all the materials with you, and rather than go through everything in minute detail, you have all of that. You may have gone through it already or can go through that. My goal is to hold a forum next Thursday night that I'll of course invite the board to, but also invite the public more with more advanced notice and more, advertising about it. I really wanted to have a chance to, this has to be a public meeting, but I really wanted to have a chance to just talk with the board, make sure we're all on the same, or at least understand, the reasoning behind these decisions. And, come from a, hopefully a unified front when addressing, mixed parent opinions about these somewhat controversial and some very controversial decisions we're forced to make. So I guess if there are questions, I think the ones that were the hottest topics were the universal testing of anyone who signs a waiver for asymptomatic students who can't be vaccinated, grades K through 6, and non-vaccinated staff. That the non-vaccinated staff kind of solved its own issue there. They're going to be required to do that if they're not vaccinated on a weekly basis. But seeking guidance from the local health director and also from colleagues in the area. I know Southington and the other districts in our health district are not doing the screening testing for asymptomatic individuals, just using the local health centers for testing for symptomatic individuals and following contact tracing based on that, like we did all last year. So that's probably the one that may have some questions. From my understanding, it's a very lengthy process. In order to really stop transmission, it has to be done more than once during a week. You can do it once a week as a way to detect some cases, but then getting the results usually 24 to 36 hours later. So as far as it being effective as a mitigation strategy, my understanding from Shane, who doesn't like to attend these meetings, no offense, but he doesn't attend really board meetings at all, is that it's with all the other layered mitigations in place, he does not feel that it's a good practice to engage in, and it's a very significant impact on instructional time. Pulling kids out for testing at a location within the school from an outside organization that would come in and man that. It's also only for students whose parents will allow it. They have to sign the waiver. I don't know how many would want that to be done. It's something that I was following our local health director's advice and other superintendents that I know that are not planning on doing that. Very few, if any, I'm trying to think from HASA, Hartford Area Superintendent Association, are using it. There are a few, but not many out of the about 39 of us. So that's kind of what the decision process was on that.
Steve, I had a question about that. I was just wondering if you or Shane had, I know they sent out the survey to the superintendents to see where the interest was, and I know that it would be federally funded. I was just wondering if anybody looked into exactly how that would be set up and run, because I understand the state would be setting it up, and the return time, it looks like it's 24 hours, and this variant is a lot more contagious, and obviously getting out asymptomatic kids faster would reduce spread. So I'm just wondering if anybody looked into like what the state plan is for them doing it, because they weren't doing that last year, but they are this year. So I was wondering if we gathered the info, because I did see that the State Department of Education is for it, and so is the State Department of Public Health.
Yeah, there's a lot of money that was awarded to the state for that purpose from the federal government, and I know there's quite a bit of pressure to make use of those funds. But for the reasons I shared, my opinion based on what Shane had told me and what the other superintendents in our region are doing or not doing was that there was more of a cost of lost instructional time and lost learning time and disruption to the school environment, and incomplete. It would be an incomplete set of results as well. It's a pooled testing as well. So the pooled testing requires if someone, you know how that works, I think, Rebecca, because you're a nurse.
Yeah, we're encouraging it everywhere.
Yeah. So, and I know there's probably strong opinions on this one as much as, and I can say I received as many, well, I think I shared one of those message. I received pretty strongly opposed message, regarding that, but that's neither here nor there. It's just a a parent perspective, but that's not what I based it on. It also says regarding in the guidance we received today, you know,
They are really trying to like use that as a way to keep kids on the field too with sports, with possibly testing, you know, before games and things of that nature, so that, you know, kids can keep sports in play. So I know they're looking at it in a few dynamics, and usually for most things, you know, getting more information and more testing is usually a good thing. So I was just curious if anybody actually reached out and found out what the state's plan was and how much loss of learning time and how and exactly how that would go would be.
someone said it takes about 2 hours for a medium or small to medium sized school, about 2 hours to get everybody down and through to be tested. It is, I did look into it. They would partner us with a local testing facility to have staff come in and do the testing. You know, it'd be once a week. It says to be effective, the screening program should test at least once per week and rapidly with 24 to 36 hours report results. To the extent it is feasible, screening testing more than once a week may be more effective at interrupting transmission. So, you know, I just, you know, I don't know what the rate of parent buy into that would be. I guess, you know, that's something I could certainly survey and find out. You know, we also have a pretty high rate of, I don't know what the latest rate of vaccinations is in Plainville, but
60%.
is it only 60? 60.0?
60. There may have been a point. The last thing I saw, I believe, was 60.
All right, I haven't checked it in the last couple of days, but so, you know, relatively high. It depends compared to the state. I think the state's over 70, 75, is it? Or
80.
so. But the vaccinations are readily available. They're also offering to do vaccination clinics, but as you know, we did 3 of those last year. And, you know, I only had 2 parents reach out to me asking me if I was going to hold a vaccination clinic. We provided a list of vaccination providers. It's pretty much everywhere. You can get an appointment or not an appointment and have it done within an hour. In the area, there's lots of locations, so I didn't plan on hosting another clinic. You know, we can look at that when the vaccine becomes available to younger children if we want to go that route. I know the state will support that. In the past, we used Griffin Health and we had a good experience. It was a ton of work to put those together, you know, and I'm proud of what we provided as a community, and I think it was well received. But we got to the end there, it was kind of saturated as far as who was going to get it with us. You know, it seemed like we didn't have, you know, the numbers didn't support doing another one over the summer. Maybe now with a lot of things linked to vaccination and requiring vaccination, we may have more coming in, but like I said, again, Shane didn't recommend holding another one because there's so many places to get a vaccine really quickly. If somebody wants one, there's a abundance of vaccine available. I don't know if I addressed that at all, but you know, if the board would like me to pursue that further, you know, I was basing it on our local director, who I did find out is leaving us September 18th. He's going to be moving on, and we're going to have a new health director. So we'll see how that goes. But congratulations to him. So I'll have to build another relationship with the new health director, but I'm sure it'll be fine. Do we have any other questions or any follow up to what Rebecca had asked? Or
I have a question, some comments. The forum, is that going to be virtual or in person?
The plan was virtual. I know Bristol tried to have one in person last night, and they had to cancel it because of there were so many people who refused to wear masks, and they didn't believe it was safe to hold it, so they ended up shutting it down. I think one of our viewers here or listeners was, I don't know if attended or saw it virtually, but I heard it didn't go so well. It's a very heated, intensely controversial topic. So, you know, bringing both sides together to hear the message that I think we all know already. I think I know both sides. I've received plenty of, and you hear it every day, you just turn on the news, but I don't know the value in bringing people together and with potential greater issues than letting them voice their concerns in a Zoom format. I'm perfectly fine to speak to anyone individually who wants to come and see me, or I spoke to someone on the phone yesterday, as you know, who's very adamantly opposed to masks and plans to attend the forum. And I did, inform me about that. But the plans to hold it as a virtual forum. If the consensus of the board is that we should do it in person, then that would be a board decision. But my advice would be, based on what I just shared, I just think the opportunities for problems and becoming out of control or potentially, a health risk are fairly significant from what you're seeing out there.
I personally think it's a cop-out not to have it in person. I think the board works for town, the people that live in this town, and we should give them the opportunity to come and speak to us face to face and look us in the eye. I think they deserve that much, no matter what side they're on. I think that's something that the board should do. I'm sure I am outnumbered in people not agreeing with me on that, but that's how I feel. The superintendent works for the board works for the people. And I don't think we should hide behind a computer screen.
I'm not hiding behind any screen. I don't hide from anybody. But I want a peaceful process that allows everyone to have their voice heard. I'm always open to talking to anyone, but to have a crowd gather and get potentially violent and angry and have arguments with one another, I don't see that being beneficial to anything.
Well, you don't know that that's going to happen. And I think the citizens deserve the benefit of the doubt.
Okay. I mean, I respect your opinion. It's up to the board.
Sorry.
It's up to the board. So whatever the board, decides, I'll certainly do.
I would just like to add to that if I could. I think if we did do an in-person meeting, it would have to be mandatory that everyone attending would be masked and remain masked. And I think going back to what you said, Steve, I think if we did something like that, that would be the only way to have a safe in-person meeting. And then if we did that, I think that there would just be an opportunity for contention by those who just did not want to wear a mask in public. And I think that's why I think it's much wiser to have the meeting virtual. And using last night's example in Bristol as another example, I agree that it would be nice if everybody would be polite, and act according, what we should be doing medically, which would be wearing a mask in that type of meeting in an indoor venue. I think that one individual you did speak to said about having it in a park, and but I think that would not also be appropriate. And with the weather we're having, you might have to cancel it because of rain. So outside would not work. Just my thought.
Thanks, Foster.
Yeah, I completely oppose that idea. We have people on the board that are in higher risk categories. We have parents on the board. To have a bunch of people together and risk having masks, either way, outdoors would be great, but then you can't. I think it would be harder for you to handle that. I feel that people should always be able to speak. There should be public comment at every meeting, and I never want to shy away from people's opinions, and I think everybody should be heard, but I don't really understand how they want to be heard in this format.
Well, there's no public comment on this meeting, so we're not giving them the opportunity in this meeting to talk.
Agreed. We're talking about next week. If there's
no, I understand that you just said every meeting, so I'm just saying they're not allowed to talk at this meeting. So
I think I explained that at the beginning. It's our chance to discuss things and be on the same page or on different pages, but at least know where we stand. And then, when we have public comment, we'll be better better able to address public comment or hear it from a perspective of knowing everything that's in our plan and understanding everything in our plan. So
A question going back to your plan. Will there be assigned seating in places like buses and cafeterias?
yes, in both.
All of them? Okay. I was just waiting for Tracy. Okay.
I don't know about at the high school. I believe Carl, I know we had extra cameras installed, so if we had to do contact tracing, we'll be able to see who is sitting exactly where. So
Yeah,
Carl,
at
Carl, you
the
wanna
high
speak to
school,
that?
yeah,
I'm
at the
happy
high
to
school,
stop
we've
talking.
added, no, at the high school, we've added additional cameras on both sides of the cafeteria so that if there is a close contact situation, we'll be able to identify who that student was sitting with inside the cafeteria. There's 4 lunch waves that are going to be coming through. As Mr. LePage mentioned, we went from 2 lunch waves to 4. We'll have about, depending on if students want to go, we're going to offer 2 that students can go to the study hall if they don't want to, eat in the cafeteria at that time. But we're anticipating 160 students, which a traditional lunch wave in the caf at PHS was probably about 330, 340 or more. And so, trying to do seating charts for 170 students each day and ensuring that they're actually sitting in that seat, in a 20-minute lunch was going to become pretty challenging to do. And so the idea was that we can use, the camera system similar to what we did for study halls last year in the Learning Commons.
How are we keeping
I
the
apologize.
other areas? Like, how are we keeping the distance without changing the?
You're coming in and out.
Rebecca, I'm sorry, you were breaking up.
I'm sorry. Sorry about that. But how far apart will the students be distanced in the cafeterias without?
At least 3 feet, but it's more than that in most situations. I know it's closer to, it's 4 or more. And I believe at all the elementaries, we're able to get 4 or more. I know Andrew, Jeff, Alicia, if anyone wants to share any details on that.
Yeah, I could share. Becky, what we have at all the elementary schools, first of all, we've really stressed in our reopening plans, seating charts are really, really imperative this year so that we can maximize the less restrictive quarantining aspects. So in our lunchrooms at Wheeler, each lunchroom, each table's numbered. And then there's a letter for the maximum amount of students we can get at each table is 6, and it's A, B, C, D, E, F. And nobody's to change those kids' seats when they sit without going through the classroom teacher. And it changes on a universal chart that all the monitors and the teachers will all have. And they're at the minimal, they're 4 feet apart. And if a couple grade levels, they're going to be about 5 or 6.
Great. And I was wondering, I heard Wheeler has some bigger classrooms, so I'm happy to hear you guys can still maintain the distance in all the classrooms and pre-K classrooms, the 3 feet.
Yes. Did you say, you broke up a little bit. Did you say you can maintain the 3 feet distance in the classroom?
Yeah, I heard Wheeler classrooms. I know what the pre-K is coming in. Sorry, I'm in a car running football
That's
practice.
okay.
So I heard that, there are some bigger class sizes. So I was just hoping that you guys were going to be able to maintain the 3 feet apart in the classroom.
We can. I've been going around to all the classrooms and looking at the desk as we get new students in. We add desks. Teachers have been in already setting up their desks. I've gone around with my measuring tape. It looks pretty good. I mean, they're in traditional rows. It's nothing fancy, but they are 3 feet.
Thanks, Andrew. I don't know if Jeff or Alicia want to share anything.
The tables at Taflon are a little bit different than Andrew, so we'll have less students at the tables, but that's just because of the spacing. But the seating charts and spacing will be consistent at Taflon, as you heard Andrew remark as well.
I sat at the cafeteria tables with 3 of our custodial staffs. We had 4 adults at a table with a yardstick, and we were comfortably able to get that yardstick between all of us. And we're larger than most of the students, so they'll be more than 3 feet apart.
What did you have for lunch, Jeff? Anything good?
We pretended and it was fabulous. It was excellent.
Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff. I know that the middle school is
Just-
using additional outdoor spaces as well and adding more tables to the cafeteria. I spoke with Amy earlier, so she had Julie Samard kind of inspect that, and we're in good shape at the middle school as well. So,
And just for the high school, I think people probably saw it. We put some photos in of how we're setting up the CAF tables, but we have 5 students at a long table and 4 students at a round table. And the closest students would be at the long table side to side. They can be about 5 feet. So they're going to be pretty well spaced out at the tables in the CAF.
you know, and again, in those settings, without the mask on and eating, it's going to be a 6-foot, you know, perimeter as far as contact tracing. It won't be the 3 feet like in a classroom setting, but you'll reduce the risk of spread, as you know from all of our many conversations in the news. You know, the further away you are, the less chance of actually contracting it. Yeah, so I think that about sums up the cafeterias. Are there other questions that any of my team here can help to address from the plethora of documents and information that you've received?
Sorry, one more. How is recess being handled?
In what
We're still gonna continue during all of our mass breaks and wellness breaks and breaks, the wellness breaks off the specialist time. When the kids have specialists, they're still gonna travel in cohorts. We have, you know, we've made great diagrams to do that. We'll probably do this when we long see this virus in our rear view mirror. We'll probably continue with it because it's just more orderly and safe. And it's just a better situation for kids when they're out there. So. Did that answer your question, Becky?
They'll have some recess time with their specialist. They'll have some during mass breaks with their teacher. It'll total at least 20 minutes a day, which is a state required. You know, physical activity, unstructured physical activity time, and we're going to require that that's outside. You know, with the teachers supervising their class. You know, so that would mean they wouldn't go outside for that mask break and sit down and read a book. You know, they would have time to run around and play, and you know.
And now they've gone right outside. So the newest stuff says.
What's that?
I think the newest info that we got late this afternoon. Is there masks when that's now? I think it says no, right?
No, they don't need to wear masks outside.
Contact tracing for that should be interesting.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's 15 minutes or more throughout the course of the day. So chances of that, you know, unless they're really close together, sitting and reading a book, you know, I would think that if they're sitting stationary, it used to be that if they're stationary and sitting and listening to a story or something, they had to wear their masks. You know, I would still recommend that because they're very close to each other. But I'll follow up on that. It doesn't say that in this guidance that we received today. It just says,
Steve, when the kids are outside, like say doing a read aloud, they, you know, the kids are positioned strategically, you know, far more than 6 feet apart without masks. That's easy to do.
right.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's-
I have pictures of that from last year. That's an easy one.
Yeah.
I remember seeing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure you know the kids
Yeah.
appreciate time outdoors without the mask, so that's great.
Yeah.
I have 2 other things. One, I had sent an email yesterday asking for the response from parents about the opening plan to be forwarded, and I know we only got 2. So I was wondering if you could go back and send us.
I sent more than 2.
Hmm?
I sent about 8 or 9. They're in that document I sent you today.
Which document?
The one with all the plans, the reopening plans on the top. And
I did see it. It's on different pages. It goes like email to email.
I
in
just
like
have
paragraph
a
form.
horizontal line separating all the different emails. There's probably 10 or 12, actually.
Okay, I missed that in all of the emails and attachments. And
That
then
was the first
one,
one. Yeah,
what?
that was the first one I sent out this morning.
Okay, I'll go back and check. And then when you sent the email out to staff today about the mandatory vaccinations, I didn't see anything there about a religious or medical exemption. I saw the testing exemption, but I didn't see anything about a religious or medical exemption.
What kind of exemption did you see?
Religious and medical?
No, which one did you see that
Oh, the testing one, I believe.
I just wrote a generic, I said there's more information coming. I don't have the details. They just shared it at 4 o'clock today, but they said there will be exemptions. They listed some examples, but I don't have enough detail to provide the staff or how they need to, show those exemptions or prove those exemptions. I also don't know if they get the exemption, if they're going to have to go for the weekly testing. I would assume they would. Because anyone who's not vaccinated is going to have the weekly testing as a staff member. Based on what I understood from today, but I can follow up and get that more information for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is this meeting being recorded?
Kevin?
Yes, it is. It's on YouTube.
Okay, thanks.
I can tell you that this is not easy work. I'm not looking for pats on the back, and I know you get them to me anyway, but this team puts a ton of time, thought, effort, blood, sweat, and tears into all these plans, into dealing with the reaction to these plans by a very mixed crowd. So it's a no-win situation, as you can probably imagine. I'm a people pleaser. I like to make everyone happy, and that's just impossible to do. So I have to deal with that. So, I'll call my counselor and I'll be fine, but no, I'm just kidding. I don't have one. I probably should. I hope the board understands that, no decision is made just on a whim because we think it's easier or whatnot. I always follow, and my team always follows what's the best advice to the people that are supposed to advise us on these things. And when that advice changes, so too does our guidance and our implementation. We had a really successful year last year. Wasn't perfect, but we had near perfect when it came to, transmission levels, no confirmed transmission in our schools. We had when I tell people how many cases we had in total in a district of 2,300 kids and 500 staff members, over the course of 180 days, I just get people saying, wow, we had that many in like 2 months. I think Plainville did a good job. I think our team did a great job. My principals, their team, their teachers, it's not easy work. A lot of sacrifices made. We're going to have to do that again this year, but hopefully to a lesser degree and hopefully to a lesser duration, shorter duration. We'll see what it brings, but like everything else, we stick together. Even if we disagree on things, I hope we can come together and do our best to have a safe and supported opening of school. I am planning convocation in person. Everyone will have to wear masks, but we typically have about 200 and I think we have about 225 or 230 certified staff, and then board members, administrators, so about 250 or so in the auditorium. We talked about the wood gym. That could get pretty uncomfortable over time. So I'll send you more details about that. But, I am planning convocation. I'd say about 80 or more %. Stacy, I don't know if you have the latest number. We're still gathering that information for our staff, but a very, very large percentage of our staff are fully vaccinated, and we'll be wearing masks. So I'll give you a preview of the theme is a family reunion, because this is a Plainville Community Schools family, and that's our theme for our convocation this year. So I'm looking forward to bringing the family together, even though it's going to be a little bit different than a cookout in my backyard, which that would be fun. But I think it'll be meaningful, and I'm looking forward to seeing everybody. As far as the reopening plans go, there's been a lot of controversy around the country. Do I have fears about, protesters or people, rejecting the plan and trying to not wear masks or removing their kids from school for homeschooling, as that's one of their choices. Yeah, I hope they don't. I really want our kids all in school. We want all of our kids back. We'll keep them safe. This is a short-term solution to a problem, and then we'll be hopefully back on track. Becky, I don't know if you have any other questions, or the board has anything they want to ask.
No, just thank you guys so much for all of your work. I know I asked a lot of questions tonight. It's a small amount of time to go through all the material and come up with stuff. So I do understand how much work you guys all did put into this, and it is greatly, greatly appreciated.
I appreciate it, and you have good questions. You keep me on my toes, which is good. You know medicine and from your career, so I appreciate it, and you always raise good points. So, yeah, and I'll continue to listen. If you have input, you want me to look into something further, I'll certainly look into the testing further, as you mentioned, Rebecca, and see if, I'd like to get a feeling of how many districts are doing it. Maybe I can find that out from CAPS, from Fran Rabinowitz.
What might be interesting, and the timing, of course, is going to be off, but it would be interesting to see if a couple districts are doing the testing, to see what their experience is with it, as far as how time consuming it is and what their participation rate is, because obviously it'd be something that people would have to, sign up to do.
Yep.
But, I'm conflicted on that, a little bit, just because there's a lot of ways to get tested. You don't have to do it in the school. So that was my first thought. I also have a thought about whether or not we should be holding these sessions in public. And, I have to say, having watched several board meetings and heard anecdotally of some of the board meetings that have been held, the conversation and people have every right to come and express their opinion, and we want to hear their opinion. But I think that we have to look at what's safe. And unfortunately, a lot of times people do come in without masks, and there's not a lot that can be done to kind of, deal with that issue. Part of me thinks, let's just do it and, let people come, and eventually people will come. Whenever we meet in person, people will come. That's what I think is going to happen. Question is, when do we want to do it? So I'm really conflicted on that one too. I don't know if any other members of the board have any other thoughts on that. I know Nicole has expressed her opinion, and I think Foster and Rebecca have expressed theirs, but I don't know if anybody else has any thoughts.
And I guess my concern, and I'm not a board member, and it's like I said, if the board wants to do it outside, or if you want to do it wherever you want to do it, I'm happy to do whatever you wish. When I am following governor's executive orders that are, unless I decide I want to break the law for some reason, and you're bound to that, but there's an unwillingness to accept that, from the few that I've received pretty strongly worded emails and phone calls from, it's just a disbelief that I don't have control over that, or a refusal to acknowledge that. I am bound to follow state law when it comes to education and keeping our kids safe. I'm obligated to do that. I'm being told of examples where that didn't happen in some other states, or where boards made a decision not to do that. And, I think Tom Mooney laid out the explanation of the great concerns about that as a board member, as an individual, and liability, or collectively as a school board and district. So, I guess my point is, if it's details about, the instruction being provided or the mitigation strategies we're using in school or things that we have control over, I'm very much open to amending those or doing a better job on those. But if it's just going to be angry individuals about something I have absolutely no control over, I think a better form for that is to, with the governor who's making the law that we have to follow. So it's not something I can say, okay, well, you were very vocal about that, I'm going to change my mind, because I can't. So I guess that's where I'm a bit conflicted about, the value in hearing those protests, because they're falling on the wrong ears. It's not something I can change, or the board can change for that matter. Unless you disagree with that, that's my personal opinion about it. But I want to hear other things maybe about the plan that we could, from parents' experience, that they think they would like to see more of, right now, how we're going to provide instruction for our quarantine students or isolated students if they have a positive case. We're still working out some of those details, but things like that, things that would be helpful to parents, that we have control over. We do have some grant money. We do have a lot of grant money that we've hired a large number of additional staff and supports for our kids across the district in many different avenues. And we'll take advantage of those. We use those. I'm working with the teachers union right now on an MOU. They requested an MOU. So I just received that tonight to review. And I'll go over it with our attorney, but so I guess that's all I have to really to say. I'm open to doing whatever the board wants. Obviously I want the ability for everyone who's at whatever forum we hold to share their opinions and their views in a respectful and, respectful and orderly and a safe way. So whatever the board wants to do, I'll set it up. My plan is to have it next Thursday evening, hopefully at 6 o'clock. In whatever venue that the board prefers. So I don't know if that's something that you want to vote on, Becky, or just if there's a consensus on that. I'm not sure the best way to decide.
I mean, I don't think, well, I'm trying to think, this is a special meeting. We don't have anything, a vote like that on the agenda. So I don't know that we would, I suppose though with the 2/3 vote of the board, I think we could do it. I can't remember my Robert's rules right now.
Well, I mean, I guess if there's a, so far I've heard, I think, three board members who are, I think, well, Foster and Rebecca, actually only 2 board members who are kind of opposed to an in-person meeting. I know you're kind of on the fence with it, Becky, and I know Nicole would prefer an in-person meeting. So, whatever.
Oh, Becky Martinez? Oh, not on the fence.
No, not you, Becky.
You, okay.
Becky Terrell. No, I know you're against an in-person meeting. Thank you.
Timing, that's right, okay.
So, that's something you could also let me know if you want, later on. I'll be sending out an invitation probably on Monday, maybe sooner, actually probably tomorrow, because I'm sending a bunch of updates to the families tomorrow based on the news today.
Right, I think that's really, more important than the venue or the location, or whether it's Zoom or whether it's in person. I think giving families the opportunity to make it at a time when people can make it, like 6:30, 7 o'clock at night, and making sure that they have plenty of notice is, the most important thing. And different avenues, obviously. I know you always do a good job of putting out different avenues for them to get their message, but if they want to email and have it read, if they want to show up, whether it's in person or on Zoom, but them having the notice.
Yeah, okay. I'll make sure I do all of that. Definitely. We'll have something where Kevin can help me so they can send in comments in advance. We can give everyone a certain amount of time, whether it's 3 minutes. I could do it at 6:30 or 7. What do you think would be better? Our normal meetings are at 7, but during the year. But I'll do all of those things to make sure it's accessible and everyone has a voice and is heard. I'll send it out well in advance so that we, I'll send it out through School Messenger to all of everyone who gets my messages, along with the latest guidelines from the state, the latest vaccination mandate for educators, other information I need to share with families tomorrow. There's also a virtual, there's a virtual house call for parents and families that I'm going to share with them. That's on Monday, the 23rd from 5 to 6. The State Department of Ed with the CCMC Medical Center and healthcare providers is hosting a virtual meeting on that date and that time to answer families' questions about what to expect and how to prepare for a safe and successful return to school. So I'm going to send that flyer out to families as well. So they'll have quite a few opportunities to both learn and share, their opinions. So I hope that is satisfactory. I don't have all the right answers. I'm doing my best to try to get, parent voice, but like I said, I'm bound by certain parameters that I can operate within. And I am the messenger in some cases, and that's my job, and that's okay. But I just want people to understand that, I have certain things that I cannot violate and some things that I have flexibility with.
As a board too, I would say that, when you have a child and you have one child and, 2 children, whatever, and you as a parent make a decision about your child and what's best for your child, you do have to remember that as a board, and the superintendent, we're making a decision for 2,300 children. So, we're just what we're going to do, try and make the decision that goes with what we think is the most reasonable and most, and safest route to protect all kids. So I'm sorry, did I cut somebody off?
Yeah, I just wanted to say something. It's a pet peeve of mine when people say that an executive order is a law. Actually not a law. And so I just don't like to refer to it as a law because it's not, that's not how a bill becomes a law. So it's an executive order, not a law. And as far as us making decisions for children that we think are best, I think what's best is for the parents to make decisions for their own child. I honestly don't think it's the board's job to make sweeping decisions for children. I think parents should be involved in that. And it's their decision. But we are where we are.
Yeah, can I comment to that? So that was kind of my thought process on us having the meeting, and I was just thinking about myself, who's in relatively healthy condition, attending a meeting where there may or may not be mass, right? I just think about my kids, I think about other people that could be present at that meeting and how they're doing. And as far as for our kids, we all know where our strengths are and where our education lies. So, the epidemiologists, the American Pediatrics Association, the CDC, the governor, kind of all falls. It's nice that there's not a discrepancy right now in any of the facts being laid, but all districts are following executive order.
That's fine. We are where we are. I'm just saying that's our job to make sweet decisions for.
So the issue is, what I'm saying to you is, yes, as a parent, I can make a decision for my child, but if the decision that I make for my child endangers someone else's children, then that's a little different. And that's how it kind of goes with this thing. People can say, hey, you can wear masks if you want. You don't have to wear a mask if you don't want to, but it doesn't work that way, right? It works when everybody wears the protection. That's the purpose of the whole thing. So if, it just doesn't work to make the decision for one child. You have to make the decision for the whole group. And sometimes that's not what everybody wants. There's no way to please everybody here. this is an impossible situation. It's very unfortunate that, you know, right from the get-go, this has been politicized right from the get-go. You know, we've just had to deal with people who are just not everybody's on the same page with what facts are, you know. There's a lot of distrust on many fronts. And so there's no way, you know, we're going to be able to keep everybody happy or solve everybody's issue. It just isn't possible. And I don't know what the solution is to this. You know, my thing here is I think that, you know, I have to determine for myself where I think what the facts are and what's the best decision. And, you know, that's what everybody has to do. But unfortunately, we're not all on the same page. It's a very sad, sad situation. But what I would just say is no matter what we do, no matter how we move forward, no matter if the session, we hold a session in public or we hold a session virtually, I just hope people are respectful in the understanding that every single person here and every single person working in our public school systems is really trying to do the best they can for kids, to make sure we have a school year that's as normal as possible, and that we can disagree respectfully, because when that happens, we can, you know, we can get through it. But when it breaks down and people start saying ridiculous things and blaming each other and saying things that you know, making it sound like people have ulterior motives when they don't, that's when we run into trouble. So that's it for me. Any board member have anything else they would like to add here this evening? Anybody else administratively, or Steve, anything you want to say? If not, I'll call for our most favorite motion of adjournment.
I just want to thank my team for coming tonight. I know some of them didn't have an opportunity to speak, but if there were questions, they were ready with them. So, you know, like I said, we have a great team. It's going to be an outstanding year. Our kids are going to have amazing experiences in Plainville this year, and it's just going to get better. So, you know, right now we're focusing on something that's perceived as a negative obstacle to overcome, but we're planning like crazy. We have been all summer to make this a great year, add staff to fill holes, add supports, add mental health supports, add academic supports, put plans together, programs together, projects together with charters, you know, really mapping out the future of our schools. And so I want to end on a high note that, you know, we're going to do great things for this town. This is something we have to come together and get through, but we always do. So I know we will on this too. So thank you very much for your support.
Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
By Ms. Becky Martinez and second by Foster. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I think that was Brent.
Have a good night.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.